the British Empire, a name synonymous with global dominance, cultural influence, and a legacy that continues to shape the modern world. It's a story of ambition, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of power, ultimately leading to the largest empire in human history. But how did this small island nation, nestled off the coast of Europe, rise to such extraordinary heights? How did a landmass dwarfed by many come to control nearly a quarter of the Earth's surface and govern the lives of millions across the globe? The answer, as with most historical narratives, is complex and multifaceted. It's a tapestry woven from threads of exploration, conquest, industrial might, and strategic brilliance, all set against a backdrop of evolving global dynamics. The story of the British Empire is not simply a tale of British triumphalism, but a complex saga with its share of shadows and light, triumphs and tragedies. It's a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about colonialism, exploitation, and the human cost of empire building. Our exploration begins in the 16th century, an era defined by the spirit of exploration and discovery. European powers embarked on daring voyages across uncharted seas. England joined the race for exploration and expansion. Names like John Cabot, Sir Francis Drake, and Walter Raleigh became synonymous with daring seafaring adventures. The establishment of the East India Company in 1600 marked a pivotal moment. The early decades of English expansion laid the groundwork for a global empire. The 17th century saw the British Empire take root in the Americas, shifting from exploration to colonization. Jamestown, established in 1607, marked the first permanent English settlement in North America. Driven by land scarcity and religious persecution, settlers sought new lives in the New World. Colonization faced challenges, including conflicts with indigenous populations and European rivalries. Despite hardships, 13 colonies were established, laying the foundation for a future nation. As we've seen, the rise of the British Empire was not a sudden explosion of power, but rather a gradual unfolding, a complex interplay of exploration, colonization, and strategic maneuvering. From its humble beginnings as an island nation on the periphery of Europe, Britain leveraged its maritime prowess, commercial acumen, and a fair share of historical circumstance to establish a global empire that would leave an indelible mark on the world. But this is just the beginning of our journey. In the centuries that followed, the British Empire would face new challenges and opportunities. The Industrial Revolution would propel Britain to even greater heights of economic and military power, enabling further expansion and consolidation of its imperial holdings. The Victorian era would witness the empire at its zenith, with Queen Victoria reigning over a quarter of the world's population. Yet even at the height of its power, the seeds of the empire's eventual decline were being sown. The 20th century would bring about two devastating world wars, testing the empire's resilience and ultimately hastening its demise. The rise of nationalism and independence movements across the globe challenged the very foundations of colonial rule, leading to a wave of decolonization that would reshape the geopolitical landscape. The story of the British Empire is not just a tale of one nation's rise and fall, it's a microcosm of global history itself. It's a story of ambition, innovation, conflict, and ultimately the enduring human desire for freedom and self-determination. Join us as we continue our exploration of this fascinating and complex chapter in human history. As the 16th century dawned, a spirit of change swept across Europe. The Renaissance, with its emphasis on humanism, exploration, and intellectual curiosity, ignited a thirst for knowledge. Explorers ventured beyond familiar horizons, seeking new trade routes and exotic riches. England, emerging from internal strife, found itself at a crossroads, with a growing sense of national identity and ambition. The defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 solidified its naval dominance. The stage was set for England to embark on its own era of exploration and expansion. The allure of the unknown proved irresistible. Merchants sought new markets for English goods. The Crown offered patronage and support to daring seafarers. The Protestant Reformation fueled a desire to spread Protestantism to new lands. The quest for religious freedom became a powerful driving force behind English expansion. The story of England's rise to imperial power begins with a cast of intrepid explorers driven by a potent mix of ambition, curiosity, and a thirst for adventure. These were not simply navigators and cartographers, they were pioneers, pushing the boundaries of the known world, facing unimaginable dangers and hardships in their quest to claim their place in the annals of exploration. Among these early pioneers, John Cabot, an Italian navigator sailing under the English flag, stands out. Commissioned by King Henry VII to seek a westward passage to Asia, Cabot's voyage in 1497 led him to the shores of North America, likely somewhere along the coast of Newfoundland or Nova Scotia. While he may not have found the fabled route to the east, his discovery of new lands rich in fish and other resources laid the foundation for future English claims in the New World. Following in Cabot's footsteps, a new generation of explorers emerged, each adding their own chapter to the unfolding saga of English exploration. Sir Martin Frobisher, driven by the quest for the Northwest Passage, made 3 voyages to the Arctic regions of North America, charting new territories and fueling hopes for a shorter route to the riches of the East. Though the passage remained elusive, Frobisher's voyages demonstrated England's growing maritime capabilities and its determination to stake its claim in the New World. These early expeditions, though often fraught with danger and disappointment, were crucial in shaping England's perception of its place in the world. They fueled the imagination, inspiring future generations of explorers and settlers, and laid the groundwork for the British Empire's eventual dominance on the global stage. While the Americas presented a vast canvas for exploration and colonization, the East, with its fabled riches and ancient civilizations, continued to beckon. The quest for a direct sea route to the East Indies, bypassing the treacherous and costly overland routes controlled by Arab and Venetian traders, became an obsession for European powers. England, eager to secure its share of the lucrative spice trade, joined the race with fervor. The establishment of the East India Company in 1600, chartered by Queen Elizabeth I and granted a monopoly on trade with the East Indies, marked a pivotal moment in England's imperial ambitions. What began as a commercial venture would, over time, evolve into a powerful arm of British influence, ultimately governing vast territories in India. The early voyages of the East India Company were fraught with challenges. Competition from established European powers, particularly the Portuguese and Dutch, was fierce, and the treacherous waters of the Cape of Good Hope presented a formidable obstacle. However, the company's persistence and strategic alliances with local rulers gradually enabled it to establish a foothold in India. The establishment of trading posts, initially focused on securing spices like pepper, cloves, and nutmeg, gradually expanded into a more complex web of political and economic influence. The East India Company's growing presence in India, initially driven by commercial interests, would eventually pave the way for British political dominance in the subcontinent. Section 4, A New World Beckons. The allure of the Americas, with its promise of land, resources, and religious freedom, proved irresistible to many in England. The early 17th century witnessed a surge in transatlantic voyages. These early settlers faced disease, starvation, and conflict with indigenous populations. The establishment of Jamestown in 1607 marked the first permanent English settlement. The discovery of tobacco transformed the colony's fortunes. The arrival of the Pilgrims at Plymouth Rock in 1620 marked another significant chapter. As more English settlements took root, a patchwork of colonies emerged. Section 5, The Lure of the Indies. The East India Company expanded its influence in the East, shifting from trade to diplomacy and military power. The Mughal Empire provided opportunities and challenges, securing trading privileges through negotiation and gifts. The decline of the Mughal Empire created a power vacuum. The company asserted itself with its private army. The Battle of Plassey marked a turning point, establishing British military dominance in the region. Section 1. A continent transformed. The colonization of the Americas by European powers, including England, stands as a pivotal epoch in human history. For England, the Americas presented a vast canvas for imperial ambition, a land of seemingly limitless potential for wealth, power, and the expansion of its burgeoning empire. The encounter between Europeans and Native Americans was marked by both cooperation and conflict. The English, armed with superior weaponry and driven by a sense of divine right to the land, engaged in a series of wars and skirmishes with Native American tribes, gradually pushing them westward and claiming their territories. Section 2. The seeds of conflict. England's imperial ambitions brought it into direct conflict with other European powers, each vying for control of this valuable new territory. The rivalry between England and France, simmering for centuries in Europe, spilled over into the New World, igniting a series of conflicts known as the French and Indian Wars. The French and Indian War, culminating in the decisive British victory at the Battle of Quebec in 1759, marked a turning point in the struggle for control of North America. England emerged from the conflict as the dominant European power in North America, but the victory came at a cost. Section 3. The Clash of Empires. The Atlantic Ocean became a highway for imperial ambition, as European powers competed for naval dominance and control of lucrative trade routes. English privateers, often operating with the tacit approval of the Crown, challenged Spanish monopoly, raiding treasure ships and disrupting trade networks. Among these privateers, Sir Francis Drake became a legend, his name synonymous with daring exploits and audacious challenges to Spanish authority. The defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588 marked a turning point in European history, solidifying England's naval dominance and paving the way for its rise as a global power. Section 4. A revolution in trade. The discovery of new lands, the establishment of colonies, and the growth of transatlantic trade led to the emergence of a complex and interconnected global economy. The New World, rich in natural resources, provided a wealth of raw materials that fueled European industries. The rise of this transatlantic economy had a profound impact on England, fueling the growth of industries and stimulating economic growth. However, this burgeoning trade network came at a human cost, leading to the horrific rise of the transatlantic slave trade. Section 5. The triangular trade. The transatlantic slave trade, driven by the demand for labor on plantations, involved a complex network of routes and exchanges. European ships exchanged manufactured goods for enslaved Africans, who endured horrific conditions during the Middle Passage. The profits generated from the sale of cash crops like sugar, tobacco and cotton fueled the economies of European powers. England, despite its eventual role in abolishing the slave trade, was deeply implicated in this horrific system. Section 6. The shadow of slavery. The institution of slavery cast a long shadow over the development of the British Empire in the Americas. The brutality of slavery and the inherent injustice of a system that denied basic human rights to millions sparked resistance and rebellion. The abolition of the slave trade in 1807, followed by the emancipation of enslaved people in the British Empire in 1833, marked significant victories for human rights and justice. However, the legacy of slavery and the deep racial divisions it created continued to cast a long shadow over British society and its former colonies. Section 1. The forge of a new era. The Industrial Revolution, a period of unprecedented technological innovation, industrial growth, and social upheaval, fundamentally altered the course of human history. Factories powered by coal-fired steam engines sprang up across the English landscape, replacing cottage industries and drawing rural populations into bustling urban centres. The rise of factories created a new class of industrial capitalists, while the working class faced new forms of hardship and exploitation. Yet amidst the upheaval and hardship, a sense of progress, of humanity's capacity to harness the forces of nature and shape its own destiny, took hold. Section 2. The Engine of Empire. The Industrial Revolution's impact on the British Empire was profound and far-reaching. The steam engine, initially developed to pump water from coal mines, found new applications in transportation, revolutionizing both land and sea travel. Steamships enabled the British Navy to project its power across vast distances, securing trade routes and transporting troops and supplies to distant colonies. The telegraph, a marvel of 19th century communication technology, further enhanced Britain's ability to govern its sprawling empire. Section 3. Steam and Steel. The Industrial Revolution's insatiable appetite for raw materials transformed the relationship between England and its colonies. India, with its vast population and abundant resources, became a particularly important cog in the machinery of the British Empire. Africa too was drawn into the orbit of the British Empire's industrial needs, with the discovery of diamonds and gold sparking a scramble for control of the region. The Industrial Revolution, while a testament to human ingenuity, also marked a turning point in humanity's relationship with the natural world, one with lasting and often destructive consequences. Section 4. The Jewel in the Crown. India, often referred to as the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, occupied a unique and complex place in the imperial imagination. Its vast size, ancient civilization, and abundant resources made it a prize to be coveted, while its diverse population, complex social structures, and distance from England presented unique challenges for imperial rule. The East India Company, which had gradually expanded its influence in India throughout the 18th century, faced growing criticism for its corruption, exploitation, and heavy-handed rule. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, a violent uprising sparked by a combination of religious grievances and resentment of British rule, shook the foundations of the company's power and led to its dissolution. In the aftermath of the mutiny, control of India passed directly to the British Crown. Queen Victoria was proclaimed Empress of India in 1877, symbolizing the formal incorporation of India into the British Empire. The British Raj, as this period of direct British rule is known, lasted until 1947, profoundly shaping the political, economic, and social landscape of the subcontinent. The British Raj was a period of both progress and exploitation. The British introduced modern infrastructure, including railroads, telegraph lines, and irrigation systems, and implemented reforms in education, law, and administration. However, these advancements often came at the expense of Indian industries, traditional ways of life, and political autonomy. The British Raj, while bringing about some positive changes, also exacerbated existing social divisions, deepened economic inequalities, and sowed the seeds of resentment that would ultimately lead to India's independence movement. Section 5. The Scramble for Africa. The scramble for Africa witnessed a rapid and often brutal partition of the continent. The discovery of diamonds in South Africa in the 1860s, followed by gold in the 1880s, ignited a frenzy of European interest. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 formalized the division of the continent. The scramble had lasting and often tragic consequences for Africa. Section 6. The Price of Power. The British Empire, by the late 19th century, stood as the largest and most powerful empire the world had ever seen. The sun, it was said, never set on the British Empire, a testament to its global reach and the vastness of its dominion. British naval power ruled the waves, British industry dominated global markets, and British culture, language, and institutions left an indelible mark on every corner of the globe touched by the empire. Yet this unprecedented power and influence came at a cost. The expansion and maintenance of the British Empire required a vast military and administrative apparatus, financed by taxes levied on both British citizens and colonial subjects. The human cost of empire building, often obscured by narratives of progress and civilization, was immense. Millions of indigenous peoples were displaced, dispossessed, and decimated by disease, warfare, and forced labor. The imposition of British rule, often justified by racist ideologies that cast the British as bearers of civilization and progress, disrupted traditional ways of life, suppressed local cultures, and sowed the seeds of resentment and resistance that would ultimately contribute to the empire's demise. The British Empire, at the height of its power, faced growing challenges both internally and externally. The rise of nationalism in colonized territories, fueled by resentment of foreign rule and inspired by ideas of self-determination, posed a growing threat to the empire's stability. The seeds of the empire's eventual decline, sown in the very act of its creation, were beginning to sprout. Section 1. Zenith of Power. By the dawn of the 20th century, the British Empire had reached its zenith, its dominion stretching across the globe. From the bustling port cities of Hong Kong and Singapore to the vast plains of Canada and Australia, the British flag flew high, a symbol of power and prestige. This was the age of Pax Britannica, a period of peace enforced by British naval supremacy. The British Empire at its peak encompassed nearly a quarter of the Earth's landmass. It governed the lives of over 400 million people. The ideology of imperialism provided a powerful justification for this global dominion. The British saw themselves as bearers of civilization and progress. This paternalistic worldview often masked the realities of exploitation and oppression. The Victorian era, spanning Queen Victoria's reign from 1837 to 1901, saw British imperial power peak and face emerging challenges. Queen Victoria symbolized British stoicism and grandeur, overseeing economic growth and social change. The Industrial Revolution transformed Britain into the workshop of the world. British ships carried goods worldwide, fueling national pride and imperial destiny. Missionaries sought to convert the empire's masses to Christianity. Explorers and scientists ventured into uncharted territories, adding to the era's sense of wonder. Beneath the grandeur, social tensions and inequalities simmered. The British Empire, unlike previous empires that relied primarily on military conquest and direct control, exerted its influence through a complex network of economic, political, and cultural ties. British colonies, while varying in their degree of autonomy, were integrated into a global system centered on London. Their economies geared towards the production of raw materials and the consumption of British manufactured goods. British investment in railroads, telegraphs, and steamship lines facilitated the flow of goods, capital, and information throughout the empire, binding colonies closer to the metropole and enabling British businesses to penetrate distant markets. British banks, insurance companies, and trading houses established branches throughout the empire, financing colonial ventures, ensuring risks, and facilitating trade, further cementing British economic dominance. British law, education, and administrative practices were introduced throughout the empire, shaping the legal systems, educational institutions, and bureaucracies of colonies, often replacing or coexisting uneasily with existing indigenous systems. The English language, considered a mark of refinement and a key to advancement within the empire, spread rapidly, becoming a lingua franca for trade, administration, and education, further cementing British cultural influence. This network of influence, extending far beyond the formal boundaries of the empire, shaped the global order and left an enduring legacy on the institutions, languages, legal systems, and cultural landscapes of nations around the world. Even in regions where British political control was relatively short-lived, the imprint of British rule, for better or worse, continues to shape the contours of the present. Maintaining the British Empire required a massive bureaucracy, a powerful military, and revenue from colonies through taxes and exploitation. The cost of administering and defending this global dominion placed a heavy burden on the British taxpayer. The British Army faced constant challenges in unfamiliar terrains and climates. Soldiers endured harsh conditions, disease and conflict far from home. The human cost of empire was immense for both colonizers and the colonized. The moral dilemmas of empire weighed heavily on the conscience of the nation. The war accelerated the rise of nationalist movements eager to determine their own destinies. The British Empire, despite its strength, rested on shifting sands. Imperial expansion created conditions for its unraveling. Seeds of discontent, sown through conquest and exploitation, began to sprout. Educated elites questioned British rule, inspired by Western ideas. Nationalist movements demanded greater autonomy and independence. The British faced growing unrest and demands for self-rule. World War I fueled nationalist sentiments. The war's aftermath created fertile ground for revolutionary movements. The British, weakened by war, struggled to maintain their empire. The stage was set for the empire's decline and fall. The First World War shattered the illusion of European invincibility and redrew the map of the world. Britain emerged victorious, but at a staggering cost in human life and economic resources. The war fueled nationalist sentiments in the colonies, leading to the empire's eventual dismantling. Financing the war depleted Britain's treasury and eroded its industrial dominance. The United States emerged as a major economic and military power, challenging Britain's global position. The enormous loss of life left deep scars on the nation's psyche. Social and political unrest followed as returning soldiers demanded change. The Russian Revolution fueled fears of similar uprisings in the colonies. The British Empire struggled to reconcile its ambitions with a rapidly changing world. The First World War had a profound impact on the colonies, accelerating nationalist movements and fueling demands for self-determination. Millions of colonial subjects fought for the British Empire, often in brutal conditions. Their sacrifices did not earn them equal treatment, leading to disillusionment and resentment. Inspired by self-determination and the Russian Revolution, they questioned British rule. In India, nationalist sentiments reached a boiling point, led by Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's non-violent resistance galvanized millions, transforming the independence movement. In Egypt, unrest over British control of the Suez Canal led to demands for independence. Across the empire, nationalist movements challenged British rule, leading to concessions and the empire's unraveling. Section 3. The Rising Tide. The interwar period saw a growing crisis of legitimacy for the British Empire. The empire, once a symbol of power, was increasingly seen as oppressive. Anti-colonial sentiment and nationalist ideas spread. Socialist and communist ideologies gained influence. Intellectuals and activists criticized the empire. The moral foundations of the empire were undermined. The British government responded with repression and reform. Suppression often backfired, fueling resistance. Britain's image abroad was tarnished. Reforms were often too little, too late. Nationalist leaders were not satisfied. Anti-colonial sentiment continued to rise. The Great Depression weakened the British Empire. Economic hardships fueled resentment. The British struggled to maintain their empire. The costs of empire became unsustainable. The empire was increasingly seen as a liability. Section 4. A world transformed. The Second World War shattered the old world order and altered the balance of power. Britain emerged victorious but weakened. The war exhausted Britain's resources and diminished its global standing. The empire faced a new and uncertain future. The war accelerated change and demands for independence. The end of the war brought urgency for self-rule. The post-war era witnessed a wave of decolonization. Section 5. The sun sets. The dismantling of the British Empire was a gradual process, marked by both peaceful transitions and violent struggles. In some colonies, such as India, independence was achieved through negotiation, while in others, like Kenya and Malaya, it was won through armed struggle. The legacy of empire continued to shape the political, economic, and social landscapes of newly independent nations. The end of empire brought a profound shift in Britain's identity and its place in the world. Once the center of a global empire, Britain was now a medium-sized power, its global ambitions tempered by the realities of the post-war world. The loss of empire, while mourned by some, was seen by others as an opportunity for renewal. a chance to forge a new identity based on equality, cooperation, and mutual respect. The British Empire, despite its flaws, left an enduring legacy on the world. Its influence can be seen in the spread of the English language, the common law legal system, and parliamentary democracy. The cultural values of fair play, individual liberty, and the rule of law. The empire's legacy is also intertwined with the dark side of colonialism. The exploitation of resources, the suppression of indigenous cultures, and the enduring legacy of racism and inequality. The story of the British Empire is a complex and often contradictory one. It is a story of ambition, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of power, but also of exploitation, oppression, and the denial of human rights. It is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us of the enduring power of ideas, the importance of understanding the past to navigate the present, and the need to build a more just and equitable world for all. The sun has long set on the British Empire, but its legacies reverberate through history, shaping the present and future. Its impact is etched globally, from the spread of English to the influence of British law, education, and governance. The British Empire's legacy is a complex tapestry, woven with threads of progress and exploitation. The injustices of colonialism, resource exploitation, displacement, and foreign rule mark its legacy. By grappling with the past, we can build a future where equality, justice, and human dignity prevail. The sun has finally set on the British Empire, its vast territories dispersed, its once unquestioned authority a fading memory. Now reflects a vibrant tapestry of independent nations, each charting its own course in a world transformed. The decline and fall of the British Empire, a process that unfolded over decades, marked a pivotal shift in the geopolitical landscape, signalling the end of an era and the birth of a new world order. The demise of the British Empire reverberated across the globe, leaving in its wake a world irrevocably reshaped. The emergence of newly independent nations, eager to assert their sovereignty and forge their own destinies, transformed the geopolitical landscape, ushering in an era of multipolarity and shifting alliances. The old order, with its European-centric worldview and its implicit hierarchies of power, gave way to a more fluid and complex international system, one characterized by both cooperation and competition, dialogue and conflict. The end of empire also brought about profound social, economic and cultural transformations. The dismantling of colonial structures, often rooted in racial and cultural hierarchies, created opportunities for greater equality and social mobility, although the legacies of colonialism continued to shape social relations and power dynamics in many former colonies. The post-colonial world grappled with the challenges of nation-building, economic development, and forging new identities in the absence of their former imperial rulers. Many former colonies faced internal divisions, often exacerbated by colonial policies that had favored certain groups over others, leading to ethnic conflicts, political instability, and challenges to national unity. The end of empire also ushered in a new era of global interconnectedness. The rise of international organizations such as the United Nations reflected a growing recognition of the need for cooperation and dialogue in a world increasingly interdependent. The Cold War, with its ideological divisions and geopolitical maneuvering, cast a long shadow over the post-colonial world as newly independent nations navigated the complexities of aligning themselves with one superpower or another, or charting a neutral course in a world polarized by Cold War tensions. The British Empire may have vanished from the map, but its imprint on the world remains indelible. The structures, systems, and ideas of the British Empire continue to shape the present, influencing language, law, education, and governance. The most visible legacy is the global reach of the English language. English has become the dominant language of international business, science, and popular culture. The British Empire's legal structures have left an enduring mark, shaping justice and rights. Parliamentary democracy has influenced political systems globally. The legacy is also evident in subtle ways, influencing social norms and political discourse. The legacy of the British Empire is not merely a matter of historical curiosity, it is a living presence, shaping the contours of the present and influencing the trajectory of the future. Understanding this complex legacy with its blend of progress and exploitation, enlightenment and oppression is essential for navigating the challenges and opportunities of our interconnected world. Acknowledging the dark side of empire, the exploitation, racism and cultural suppression that characterize so much of its history is crucial for building a more just and equitable future. Reconciliation with the past, acknowledging the suffering inflicted on colonized peoples, and addressing the enduring legacies of colonialism is essential for healing old wounds and fostering genuine understanding and respect between nations. Yet the legacy of empire also offers valuable lessons for building a better future. The interconnectedness fostered by the empire, albeit often exploitative in nature, highlights the importance of global cooperation and dialogue in addressing shared challenges such as poverty, climate change, and conflict. The ideals of democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law, though often inconsistently applied during the empire, continue to inspire movements for social justice and human rights around the world. As we move further into the 21st century, the legacy of the British Empire serves as both a cautionary tale and a source of inspiration.